Welcome to the AI+HI Project. I'm Nichol Bradford, SHRM's Executive in Residence for AI+HI. Thanks for joining us. Each week we sit down with visionaries from the worlds of business, technology, and HR to provide you with deep insights, actionable strategies, and practical advice for harnessing the transformative potential of artificial intelligence combined with human ingenuity. This week, we're exploring how AI is transforming the employee experience, workforce operations, and people leadership at scale. Our guest is Maren Waggoner, Senior Vice President of Global Tech and Corporate Functions People at Walmart. Maren supports Walmart's people-led, tech-powered transformation, leveraging AI-driven tools that enhance employee experience and operational efficiency for Walmart's 2.1 million associates globally. Maren, welcome to the AI+HI Project.
Thank you so much, Nichol and SHRM, for having me. I am thrilled to be here today.
We're so excited to have you. The example that Walmart provides for organizations who are thinking through how they should use technology and how they should use AI, I've been really excited about having you on the show because of all of that. So, Maren, let's start with your journey, though. What first drew you to the intersection of technology and people transformation at Walmart?
Yeah, absolutely. It actually started off earlier in my career, pre-Walmart. If I think about, my education, I started off as an industrial organizational psychologist. So went to grad school and really got fascinated with human behavior. And I think that's the key, right, to all of this, particularly as we think in today's day and age with technology and the humanity and the intersection of that. So from early days through college and grad school, it was really psychology and human behavior that drew me to it. And throughout my career, then fell into the space of human resources. And it's a way to apply psychology principles, human behavior, organizational change, and leadership to business setting, right, with an organization. And so I completely fell in love with this field and being able to provide impact from within an organization, being part of a team culture, helping co-create what that culture is and all the mechanisms from an HR perspective around that. After some time at DirecTV, AT&T, and Ticketmaster, it brought me to Walmart, actually in 2017. And it's been an amazing journey. When I started, we were actually accelerating our e-commerce business. So we had acquired jet.com. We were doubling down on e-commerce, and fast forward post-pandemic, our digital business has really taken off. And so that brings us to today and in 2025, where we're able to have conversations about AI and how that's going to continue to accelerate both our customer experience from a shopping perspective as a retailer, but also our associate experience. So our employees, we call them associates, and we get to play a part in transforming their work experience through the tools that we provide, through better processes, and ultimately it elevates the human. So I couldn't be more thrilled. I think it's definitely been a journey, and we're learning each and every day, but hope to make a positive impact on our associates.
Absolutely. And I love the combination of your background. It's as if like your expertise and what you have done, you were really made for this moment because AI is about the intersection of human and technology, I think more so than any previous generation of tech. And so, what I'd love to do for our audience is help them get the definitions. And so you've embraced at Walmart a people-led, tech-powered approach. Can you break down what that means in practice and like what's the definition of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll actually anchor it in our mission, which is that we are a people-led, tech-powered, omni-channel retailer that's dedicated to saving money and live better and helping our communities and our customers to do that. When we anchor and double click into people-led, tech-powered, people-led comes first. So I'll start there. In the end, it's all about our people. From our founder, Sam Walton, There's been a quote about are people making the difference? And that is still as much true today, 60 plus years later from when Walmart was founded. And that's actually rooted in our values. So when we think of what people led really means for us, it actually starts with our values and an ultimate respect for the individual and a belief that our people make the difference. As you mentioned, we've got 2.1 of them worldwide, globally, operating in different markets, both in the field as well as in corporate campuses. And that is our true belief. And so the definition of people led for us is our values and the underlying belief that our people, our associates truly make the difference. On the tech powered side of that, we spend quite a bit of time actually thinking about the wording of tech enabled, tech powered, and stuck on the tech powered side because it is the booster, right, to make the people led experience the best it can be. And so it is in service of, so the technology is in service of our customer experience and our associate experience. And that's truly what we mean by that. And so as we design technologies, as we design tools, it's ultimately in service of the ultimate outcome, which we want to create. And that's really simply put, customer experience and associate experience.
Wonderful. And I love the just the nuance. Words are so important. And so there is a big difference between tech powered and tech enabled. A really big difference. And so I love that you've chosen the tech powered part. Can we give our audience an example? I've been looking at and reading about the My Assistant technology that you have. And can you tell our audience about it? How is it helping associates automate their tasks and focus on their human centric work? Can you explain for our audience what it is and what it does and how it helps?
Absolutely. So, My Assistant is an internally developed generative AI tool that helps our associates internally simplify their workday. So, when you think about external tools like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, right? Think about the suite of AI tools that are out there. Our technology and product teams developed an in-house tool called My Assistant, which we use, the suite as well of external tools. But as we think about data, which is important, especially from an HR perspective as well, we want to make sure that we have an internal tool for specific Walmart knowledge, Walmart data, and Walmart actions. So as you think about a practical example of that would be if I need to look up our travel policy and what my per diem expense might be, I can use My Assistant and use it like a chatbot, type it in, and it knows and feeds from the repository of all of our policies and will give me that response. So gone are the days of having to like search on an intranet, right? With, maybe a search functionality that's not great. And instead, it's replaced with consumer grade, just like we're used to in other AI tools out there in the world, and use that internally for our Walmart knowledge. Same thing for data, right? So if I'm a store manager or an HR market manager supporting a fleet of stores and I want to look up the turnover year over year of said stores, I can actually use My Assistant to ask for that of what's the turnover of store 100, and it will share that with me. So that's kind of on the data side. And then on the action side, as you think about kind of day-to-day HR actions or manager actions like hiring somebody, moving somebody's reporting relationships from, manager A to manager B, that is something that we can do through My Assistant as well. And so think of it as consumer grade AI platform that helps us for internal knowledge on anything that's Walmart related, kind of our internal tool. And then we use that in a combination, of course, with external partnerships as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm hearing also is that when you're building these internal tools, you are treating your associates with the same level of care that you treat your customers to have a commercial grade internal tool. There's a lot of companies where it's like the external looks great, but like the internal tool looks like it's from the 1990s.
We try really hard on that. And I will say, there's always room to grow, but that's where the feedback loop is important. So as we think about even enhancements to My Assistant or other digital tools we have for our associates, we can actually rely on feedback from our associates. So anytime we go visit a store, visit one of our supply chain buildings, We do what's called listening sessions, and we listen to our associates. And some of that is actually still like truly like pen and paper, what's on your mind. But we can take those ideas, we can take that feedback back to our corporate teams, our tech teams, our product teams, and help enhance the tools. And so that feedback loop is really important for us. The other thing I would say on that is also, you're as an HR function, you're sitting on a large amount of data as it relates to kind of, HR inquiries, if you will. So we have a people services team where, somebody can, if they have an issue, if they have something that need corrected, they can contact that, which creates a ticket. Well, the data in those tickets, we can actually go through and like, what are the most common inquiries and how do we automate them? What are the most common questions or process breakdowns when you look at the volume of these tickets, and how do we enhance those processes? And so as an HR, team, that's a huge amount of data that we have at our fingertips to use as a feedback loop. And to your point, make the associate experience even better than it is, because there's always room to grow. We've made some great strides. We're really proud of what we've done, but the journey's not over.
And are you finding that generative AI and also, previous generation of natural language processing, like that's how you're getting through all of the feedback?
100%. Those both qualitative and quantitative data, I think as an IO psychologist, it's actually amazing what AI and Gen AI tools can do now to help us with data mining and getting to insights much faster, right? Getting to the analysis and insights from a large body of data. So I think that's really exciting. One example, actually, recently with our annual engagement survey, we were actually able to provide our managers tools through the use of AI and through my assistant that actually surfaced up by combing through the annual engagement scores, both qualitative and quantitative, to look at and nudge and prompt up, here's the top 3 themes, and here's what you might want to do about it. And so that's been an amazing use case, and it drove about 50% adoption right away without even a lot of marketing around it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the associate engagement around these responses because, it's like, all of us have been in situations where we get the pulse survey or things like that, and you're working. So it's like, "Oh, I have to fill out the survey," and you're like, "But I'm closing the deal right now." And so, I'd love to hear how these use of technologies and what you've described. You just said that it increased, the adoption of, people doing, giving the responses. Can you just share to our audience a little bit about, like, how the use of AI, is helping you get more people to participate?
Yeah, I think, from a change management perspective, one is it has to be consumer grade. You mentioned that as well. So, where we got the 50% manager adoption and looking at these insights was it was super simple. On their phone, we have a Me at Walmart app. So if you're a field associate, it's Me at Walmart, or if you're at Sam's Club, Me at Sam's, or at corporate, it's Me at Campus. And that's an app, right, that we can get at our Walmart app store internally. And our associates have that on their devices. So when you click into that, my assistant pops up. And when we drove our annual engagement survey, to stay on this example, it automatically had a little, pop up that was like, hey, manager, have you looked at your engagement survey results? And here's a little, icon. And you click on it, and immediately it surfaces up through the use of AI, the top 3 themes. And so when you think about it, for me as a manager, I just had to go to the app. It popped up already. I clicked once, and the insights were right there at my fingertips. And not only was it the insights, it was also the actions and suggestions around, hey, recognition is an opportunity area. You might want to consider XYZ on recognition best practices. And so I guess the point being consumer grade and making it easy, just like we would navigate our day-to-day lives, and bringing that philosophy to the work life, I think is a key piece. The other thing from a change management, to your question on adoption, is you got to tell those stories, right? There's a little bit of even like internal competition of like, oh, wow, okay, somebody else used this. Why haven't I done this? I should check it out too. And so we spend a lot of times in our town halls sharing use cases, doing demos. Even from an HR perspective, we had our entire global people team under Donna come together and had our annual kickoff meeting. And we actually spent 30 minutes going through kind of HR use cases on AI and how our teams have used My Assistant. And we had some fun with that. Like, hey, here's the top 10 most frequent prompts, or here's a QR code and send us your favorite prompt. And so, right, there's a way to have some fun with it and create a bit of internal energy to use the tools as well.
So, could you define for us and the audience the difference between my assistant and me at Walmart and how they interact?
Yep, absolutely. Think of me at Walmart as kind of the ultimate Uber app and experience layer. So if I go to me at Walmart and I use myself as an example as an associate here, I can look up, Maren Waggoner, my profile, my hire date, who my manager is, my org chart, my team. I just finished my evaluations, performance management wise with my team. So I can click in there and look at their goals, their evaluations. Kind of think of it like an HRIS, but through an app, right? So it's linked to Workday, but me at Walmart is the experience layer. So it might be linked on the back end with Workday and a whole bunch of other systems, but it's the experience layer. And then one of the experiences within me at Walmart is then My Assistant. So it's almost like a mini app within the Uber app, if you will. So me at Walmart is the umbrella. And then there's multiple, functionality, I guess I would say, underneath it, one of them being My Assistant.
Wonderful. And I've, um, there's so many questions I want to ask you because of that. But one of the things that you talked about earlier when we were chatting about change management, what are some of the cultural shifts that have been necessary to get people to do AI driven decision making? You've mentioned that at the town hall, you really spent a lot of time helping people see what the use cases might be. What are some of the overall cultural shifts that you've seen that needed to change to get adoption?
It's a great question, and it's one we're still spending time on. So we're looking at it really multi-pronged. I mentioned the town halls and the communications around it already, but there's quite a bit that we're doing. I actually yesterday had a conversation with our recognition team and how we bake it, the behaviors around Gen AI into a recognition mechanism. So, for example, we have kind of a spot bonus award, and we talked about what are the behaviors around digital and Gen AI, even within the HR space, but also for a broader associate space that we want to recognize. And so we can give that guidance even to our managers around, hey, look for these types of behaviors. And if so, let's use that through our recognition programs because we all know what gets rewards and recognized gets repeated, right? Human behavior. And so we've embedded it into some of those mechanisms. The other one is in our learning. So we actually have an AI portal that we launched to our associates where we have links to My Assistant, but also other generative AI tools, as well as learning around it. So we have partnerships like with Coursera, as well as have our own internal training and online courses, of course, that we can link with and share those best practices. So ultimately, when you think about like an employee life cycle from how we attract talent and recruit, which we look at our early careers programs as well, and how do we think about talent that is a bit more digital savvy, right, and has those AI skills as the HR partner for global technology, that's top of my mind, right? So that's one aspect on the attraction side. But then on the development side, it's providing the tools, making it easy, as well as the learning. And so that's kind of all in one place to make it easy. And then recognition, I touched on already. And then communication, of course, and the town halls and the tone at the top and sharing the examples is definitely a wrapper around all of it. So, really, when you think about kind of HR practices in general, you almost have to think about it from all lenses of hiring to development to recognition to communications to have a full change plan across the board. And so, we're actually activating across all of those, kind of firing on all cylinders, if you will, and are continuing to come up with ideas. The only last thing I would say on this is what we found is it has to be kind of both top down and bottoms up. And so we had things like, an AI playground, and people can submit, like I mentioned, their favorite prompts. Or if somebody has created a Gen AI agent and wants to share it, there's spaces to do that from a bottoms up perspective to create the energy. And then also, of course, the top down direction, tone at the top, and stories is super important as well.
One of the things that we've seen and that I've seen in talking to people in other organizations that are, doing well with these transformations is there's the trust at the top. So it's the tone at the top. I love the way that you say that. So there's a trust that comes from the way the leadership shows up. And then there's um, it becoming bottoms up. So individuals engaging, and then, the sort of like iterative trust that they develop with the tools. But sort of like one of the things that I think is happening, but people don't always weigh it as heavily, or the successful teams recognize it, but it's that the peer-to-peer trust. And you mentioned it earlier where they see someone else doing something and they're like, "Oh, I can do that too." So there's this peer-to-peer trust that happens from if there's a peer that I trust who is, successfully integrating AI behaviors, then that actually accelerates it even more.
That's exactly right. I think what's interesting on this one too is specifically on AI, you're using it in your outside of work life as well. And so what we found on the peer-to-peer point as well is, like, I've even had this in my own staff meetings, just asking the question of, hey, how's everyone using AI? And some of the examples we actually got early on were not necessarily work examples. They were, hey, I planned my trip. I'm doing a hike, and I checked out itinerary and packing plans, and AI really helped me with that. And I used ChatGPT, right? And then to your point, you have peers like, oh, well, I have a trip coming up and I should do that too. And let me try it out. And so I think you have this interesting time and space right now with this particularly technology where it really blends, the internal at work experience and the outside of work experience. And I've seen that as well on the peer to peer side of how do we as leaders foster the environment to share. And I've actually found that some of the early sharing was through like personal experiences that then they brought in. And then it's like, oh, okay, now let me try to do this and how it will bring me value in my work life.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's switch to the future. Some of the things that you've described, like, in a people-led, tech-powered, like I think are a perfect example or a great example of a um, tech-powered HR leader. So when you look ahead, how do you see HR leaders evolving in this AI-powered workplace? So, HR leaders have more information, easier to access than they have ever had. They have more tools. They have the ability to do the things they've always aspired to. But what does that actually look like? Where do you think HR leaders will evolve when they have so many tools to use to serve for their associates?
It's a great question. And I think it's such an exciting time to be in HR now. I think, and I love the field, right? Like as an HR professional, as an IO psychologist, like I love this field. And I think there's no better time than now because all of the pieces that, sometimes HR can get into like the processes and the inquiries and some of the like tactical and how do I get data and how do I respond to this email, and how now we're in a spot where through the use of technology, including AI, you can actually focus on the people led piece, the humanity piece of it, and lift that up. And I think in today's day and age, it's actually more important than ever of people, human to human connection. And if you think about the purpose of a human resources function, right, it is on the humanity. And that is so needed right now. I also think in today's day and age, right, attention is like the limited resource because everything's grabbing all the time. And so, how do we use the tools to do the things that, were time sucks before and not as value add? So, we can actually dial into our attention on dialogues like this, right? Human to human connection, mentoring, coaching, thinking about reinforcing culture, creating contexts, furthering the business strategy, and sitting with business leaders on how do we accelerate. So I think there's no better time than now on that. I think the outcomes of AI, if I were to boil it down to like the three things we're focused on, it's three things. Speed. So how do you work through faster, right? Like time to market, even on the HR side, time to reach an associate, time to solve an issue. That's like speed is of the essence, going back to the attention point. So speed is one outcome. The third, which is already proven with AI too, it helps boost creativity, right? Because it surfaces ideas. And so innovation is actually the second outcome we're focused on. How do we innovate? How do we fuel creativity? How do we get more ideas, more crowdsourcing? And unlock that, as well as freeing up our team's like mental capacities to think creatively because they're not mired in kind of mundane tasks. So speed, innovation, and then the third one is really on the efficiency side as well. And you mentioned that in the kickoff. So really getting to efficiency and creating capacity. So I'm excited about that, and that's for our own function in HR as well as right because we wear two hats. It's like our own function as well as the role we play in the business and in the organization. And I think this is one where we can unlock capacity, doing more with less, which links to speed and innovation to some respect. So they're not mutually exclusive, but those are the three outcomes I really think about. But the uber point being, it's really about doubling down on humanity. That's what I'm really excited about. And the technology can help us create the capacity for that, create innovation and innovative ideas to do that, and to do it faster, which goes to the speed point.
I'm so inspired because I think a couple of things. One, you mentioned freeing mental capacity, and that's not something I think many people really think about it because my interest is in neuroscience, psychology, and things like that. I also think about cognitive flexibility, mental capacity, and what's happening right now. And you mentioned innovation and speed. What's happening right now is it used to be that things were 20% ideation and then 80% building and operating, but that's really flipping. The ability to think about more, be more creative, do more. It's flipping. I had a friend who was in a meeting the other day, and in the meeting, they're talking about a product, talking about something that they want to launch to their associates. And in the meeting, someone built it in the meeting, or a prototype. And so, we're moving where to this place where you can go from imagination to software in moments. And so,
I think that's actually such a great point on like the democratization of technology, right? Because in the past, it's been like, okay, you had to be a software engineer to write code. Well, now I actually think to your question on like any HR professional, anybody really anywhere, regardless of what function you're in, and definitely outside of tech, can be a developer, right? Because you can actually add a team member, like literally show me how to create an agent through Microsoft Copilot in like 5 minutes. I got to practice that myself still a little bit, but I was like, this was one of my team members. And I'm like, it was incredible. So to your point, it's democratization of creating those tools and such more speed.
yeah. So, okay. So, what has surprised you? You're one of the few examples of scale. Like, there's like no one has Walmart scale. Very few people. So, or very few organizations. So, what surprising lessons have you learned from rolling AI out at that scale?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, it goes to the change management. People want to adopt and generally like people, especially if their external life is consumer grade, they want that experience inside as well. And so I think it's connecting the dots on all the change management. And that's actually where we have to spend some time as HR professionals is planning for that. And it's like a continuous drumbeat and keeping a pulse on it and continuing to move that journey forward. Sometimes it's easier to launch something like, here's a new tool. And it's actually a lot harder to drive the adoption over the long haul. And so the time spent on that, I think, has been something I've learned of don't just focus on the launch of things, but actually focus on the implementation, the change management, the adoption, the stories, and spending time on those and continuing that momentum. I think that's been a really exciting time for us to focus on it, and has been a bit of a learning as well, because it's sometimes a lot easier just to, launch, and you send your launch email and you think you're all done. And that's actually, where the real work just starts, not where it stops.
So with the 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 lesson learned about all of the other things that have to be focused on as well, how do you see leadership changing? Because those are all, change management ways of being. How does this AI world that we're coming into, how does it change leadership itself?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something I'm continuing to learn on as well. But a few things that I've seen and that are coming up. One is the doubling down on humanity. So I think there is more of a focus for leaders, and should be, and honestly, a bit more of an expectation to be really good managers of people, to exhibit good leadership behaviors, which means communication, strategy, empathy. I think it's going to be harder for leaders who are, very technical and don't have kind of the soft skills and human side, because AI is going to take care of a lot of the technical stuff already. But the humanity is what really matters and is required to lead through the change as well and foster that human connection. And so I think people are eager for that. And I think it puts even more ownership on leaders to focus on the soft side, the leadership behavioral side of things, and creating followership. Because also associates have choices. So that's definitely one. I think the second one is change management. As we've talked about, that's a theme. So change leadership, leaning into that, setting good tones at the top in good, safe, inspiring ways, I think is absolutely critical and puts more emphasis on that. And then thirdly, which is an interesting one, and we haven't talked about it yet, it's how we think about work. And so, especially as an IO psychologist, you get into like, well, this is the job description, and these are the tasks and the knowledge and the abilities to it. Breaking actually work down into the task level and the processes is actually really important, because it requires leadership to understand the work itself and the tasks and the processes in order to transform the tasks and the processes, right? And sometimes you run the risk of putting tech first and you kind of think process follows. But in this one, especially if you use AI, like, you actually need to kind of get down to the task and process level to then be able to use AI effectively. And I think that requires a leadership muscle too. And so at Walmart, we actually spend a lot of time talking about skills. And it's, we're moving towards a skill based economy. And so tasks and skills is something to think about, and how we construct work. And I think to your point on leadership, that's needed too for leaders to lean into that.
And that actually leads into my very last question is direct advice for someone who's getting started on their journey. And it sounds like one of them is also like really understanding, flexing the leadership muscle so you actually really understand the tasks. So what are the if you're coaching me Monday, I go back to my HR team. What advice do you have for me about starting my AI journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. A couple of things. One is, I would open, as a leader and as an HR professional in it, open up the dialogue would be like a place to start. Like, as simple as in a staff meeting or in a town hall, have some Q&A around, hey, how are you using AI today? And don't even limit it, whether it's a work thing or outside, but just open up the dialogue and have people share stories. So that would be like one practical one. And that means take your own medicine. So, I will say for me too, right? It was a learning curve of like, okay, I got to get up to speed on this too. How am I using it in my day to day life? And so we all own that, right? As individuals. And so it starts there. But then as leaders, as HR professionals, fostering the environment for that dialogue and the stories and just asking the question is one. And creating that in a safe environment that's open. Second is, yeah, get down to the task and process level. Really start to think through. We're doing that at Walmart right now, even in our own people function, which is, okay, what's the learning team and content creation? And how do we use AI in content creation? And what's the flow of work? And so actually getting into that is the second piece, I would say. And then, thirdly is keep in mind consumer grade. And so really be, to your point, don't think the associate experience should be that different than the customer experience, and treat your associates like customers. Listen to their feedback, have good feedback loops, and create tools that resonate versus trying to push kind of, HR things that might not resonate.
Yeah. As we've been talking, I realized one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the Walmart example is because often companies or when organizations talk about doubling down on humanity, they do not have the results, the business results that you do. The reason why the Walmart story is so important for everyone to hear in this particular age is because you are doubling down on humanity. You have, you are a technical powerhouse, and you have the results. Like it's undeniable proof of the importance of the human part. And so as people in different organizations are thinking about, oh, here's all the people that I get to get rid of. And here's how I think about this in pure efficiency. What your story says is it says, optimize the work, double down on humanity, use the technology, and use that to grow and serve your associates and your customers. And it's a powerful message. It's a powerful message. So that's it for this week's episode. A big thank you to Maren
Thank you.
Waggoner for sharing your experiences, insights with us today. I encourage you to follow the AI+HI Project wherever you enjoy your podcast. And if you found today's conversation valuable, please take a moment to leave a review, share your thoughts, and spread the word. And finally, you can find all of our episodes and resources at shrm.org/AI+HI. Thanks for joining the conversation, and we'll catch you next time.
SHRM.